It's time for TWiT episode 296. It's kind of a gray hair episode today. Jerry Pournelle is joining us. Steve Gibson, John C. Dvorak. We'll talk about Google. We'll talk about Richard Branson's plan to dive to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We'll talk about going to the moon and a whole lot more. This Week in Tech is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by Winamp for Android, the ultimate media player for your desktop and Android device, featuring wireless sync. Download it free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 296, recorded April 10th, 2011. Smells like a big wet dog in here. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Go to My PC. Attention iPad owners, access your applications and files on your home or office computer from your iPad with Go to My PC by Citrix. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomypc.com. Promo code TWiT. And by Audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum Plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/TWiT2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter. User ID audible_com. And by Squarespace.com. The fast and easy way to publish a high-quality website or blog. For a free 14-day trial, go to squarespace.com/TWiT. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 296. And as we are wont to do on this second week in April, I thought we'd go back and talk to some of the pioneers of the technology industry. Sometimes we call it our gray-haired TWiT, starting with this fella here. I don't know what's going on with your camera, Jerry. It looks like you're coming to us from the Isle of Man space program. Jerry Pournelle, who, of course, the great columnist for Byte magazine. We hope to see you in the new Byte. I've been talking to Gina Smith, the new editor-in-chief of Byte magazine. She really wants Chaos Manor back. I hope we can get that. It's good to have you, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks. Hi. Yeah, it looks like Byte may be coming back, and Gina's really a ball of fire getting things going.
She's the greatest, yeah.
She's also a doll, but that's...
Well, more than that, we're hoping to do their podcast. We want to call it Bytecast and have the Byte Editors Roundtable on our network as soon as we get a roundtable. We're going to buy a roundtable just for it.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
But it's going to have to be done remotely. I'm not coming up to Petaluma. I haven't that much interest in arm wrestling. I'd like to come see you sometime, but that's a long trip.
Well, I'll explain. We're going to, absolutely. You can do it from right there in your library. By the way, Jerry, if you're watching the video, is in his library in his home in Southern California. It's always a great shot to see all those books. I just love it. It's like a museum. The Dead Tree Edition.
Yeah. It seems to be the way it is. But I like dead trees because you can see their titles. Well, Jacques Branson once described it as a scholar in his office being assaulted by his books.
I love it. And that's just what it looks like. That's great.
Well, and we also know that you'll be able to read them even decades from now, whereas with all of this electronic format stuff, we don't really have any guarantees that they'll be readable at some arbitrary point in the future.
As a matter of fact, I could use some advice on how to read some old 5 1/4-inch magneto-optical discs, old worm drive discs. I have nothing that'll read them anymore.
Yep. Hey, that voice, that other voice you hear is somebody you probably will recognize as the host of our Security Now podcast, and my dear old friend Steve Gibson, who is also been doing podcasts with us since the very beginning, and another writer. Did you ever write for Byte? I know you were in InfoWorld.
Oh, just InfoWorld.
Yeah. And Steve's column, what was it called?
Tech Talk.
Tech Talk column. For many years I read in InfoWorld magazine. And sitting right next to him on the back page of InfoWorld magazine, that's this guy, John C. Dvorak.
Inside Track column.
Inside Track. He still does the Inside Track. It's PC Mag still publishes it, right?
Well, it's online. Everything's online. Everything's gone online. So, yeah.
Yeah, that online thing, it's just a flash in the
I've heard
pan.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's probably forgotten, but I had the back page column in Byte in InfoWorld after Dvorak left. It turned out that McGraw-Hill had not properly drawn up its contract to make it exclusive against InfoWorld, so
that's interesting.
I took over what John had been doing as the lead or trailing columnist for a year and a half, 2 years.
Was that considered prime real estate, the back page of a magazine? I guess it was.
I think that was the best spot in the magazine, was the inside back by it's the facing to the actual, but you open the magazine from behind and it's what you look at. That was what John had for.
Yeah, the reason that was considered prime real estate is because it was only for the writers, because what it amounted to was that people could go to a newsstand, flip open the back page, read your stuff real quick, and put the thing
skip
back.
the rest. But it's easy to skip the body of the magazine.
Yeah, I don't know how prime that was. My job is
I think it's true. I was on the other side of this, guys. I was the guy who subscribed to InfoWorld and Byte magazine and absolutely flipped right to the back page of InfoWorld every single week. Steve, with all due respect, it was inside track right away.
Oh, I know. Well, and my column was the next page in.
Yeah, so it's easy. Yeah.
And you know that advertisers are charged extra premium for the inside front and inside back covers. So it must be that it gets extra attention,
Sure.
and it's understood.
Front of book, back of book, all of that.
Yeah.
All right.
My job in the old Byte was carrying the back of the book. They put me in on page 240 is where my column started, and they'd have it one column wide and about half a page deep, and it wound through every dang page in the back of the book,
ad.
all the way to the end, every ad. And people would say, why don't they put you up front in the feature position? And I had to point out to them that I got paid more for being back in the back because I carried all those pages of ads, for God's sakes. That was why they were so dang long and rambling.
Yes, kids. That's when
sorry,
computer magazines had 236 pages in them still.
Sears Roebuck catalog size. If anybody remembers what a Sears Roebuck
I don't think that's a reference that's going to resonate either. Go ahead.
80%, 85% were ads. I mean, they were just amazing. The amount of revenue those things generated.
You knew it was
then.
the beginning of the end when you got the computer shopper. And it must have been 10 pounds, and you could make furniture out of this. If you had a year's worth of computer shopper, you had a nightstand ready-made.
I built a house.
Yeah, no kidding. John, what were you going to say before
I was going to say that the probably the best example of that sort of thinking that Jerry was expressing is the cartoons in the back of the New Yorker. They're only there to keep you flipping through those pages so those ads can get some attention.
Yeah, no, you're right. Hey, just a word. This is the last episode of the 5th year of the TWiT network. Our very first TWiT was April 17th, 2005. We begin our sixth year next Sunday, and we're going to bring back, as best we can, the hosts on episode 1, Kevin Rose, Patrick Norton, Robert Heron. I think David Prager will join us. John, you weren't a part of TWiT until maybe 5 or 6 episodes in.
I think of episode 5.
Yeah.
So I'm out.
Well, you can come if you want. You'll be the new guy.
I would be a third wheel.
Leo, it'd be really neat if it were possible to do sort of a time capsule that way and talk about how the internet has changed in these 5 years. Because
God knows
those guys were all part of it.
Well, the big story this week is the House of Representatives on Friday overturning the FCC's internet regulations, their net neutrality regulations. Senate will have to vote on this. President Obama's already said that he will veto the bill should the Senate pass it. The Senate is expected to pass it. And, of course, this is always that big fight is should the government be involved in net neutrality? And if so, is Obama right to veto this? Let me start with you, Jerry. I know you have a pretty strong anti-government bias.
It's not so much anti-government as that I think I'm not one of those people, an anarchist. I'm not one of those people who thinks there ought not be a government. I just think it ought to mind its own business, and I don't think this is the government's business. I haven't seen any abuses. John was telling me that we were going to have 200 bought accounts because of this, but I haven't seen it happen yet.
Does it scare you, John, that the net neutrality regulations are overturned?
No, but I do agree with Jerry that I don't like the idea of the FCC all of a sudden. My thinking is the following. Once the government starts getting involved with net neutrality, then they're going to get involved with regulation. Because it's like they can't back off. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger. I work for the government. I've seen this in action.
Well, we talked about this before, but let me throw in the opposing point of view and then let you tell me why I'm wrong. I think this. I agree with you. I mean, the last thing I want to see is the government involved in the internet. But I think this is a mess government created. In fact, the FCC created when they allowed the duopoly of the cable companies and the phone companies to control the internet. If there were true internet competitiveness, if I could go to 10 different ISPs, I wouldn't be so worried about net neutrality. But Comcast says 250 gigabyte cap. AT&T just announced 150 gigabyte cap. That's a form of network discrimination. Isn't this the FCC fixing the problem that they created in the first place? Don't we need this because we don't have true competition?
This is that situation where, you create a problem, then you fix it and mess something else up, and then fix that and fix the next thing that you screw up, and then you keep tracing it back, and then next thing you know, and I'm telling you, this is where it's headed. You're going to have to be licensed to do this show.
If that happens, I'm going to the Isle of Man.
No, I can easily see
you
it.
have about 10 terabytes of live broadcast every hour, and so maybe you need more than 150 gigabytes. But I don't know very many people who need that kind of bandwidth.
Well, that's the argument AT&T gives, that, 99% of our customers don't use that much. This is to prevent bandwidth hogs. But I disagree, Jerry. I think what they're doing is a preemptive strike against the day soon to come when we're watching Netflix, when we're downloading movies from iTunes and Amazon. This is to protect their phone business. This is to protect Uverse, their television business. They're worried about me and everybody else taking over.
Well, and remember, they're also protecting the MPAA and the RIAA. We're now seeing the government blacklisting web domains and, arbitrarily deciding that, okay, these guys are copyright infringers, and suddenly we can't access those domains because they're taken out of DNS. So, I mean, the government is definitely creeping into our internet activity.
I just think
it is, but I don't think letting the FCC have at it with Pournelle's iron law of bureaucracy says that bureaucracies exist to fortify themselves and expand their own capabilities, not to do what you think you set them up to do.
But that's all right. But that's dogma, Jerry. What do we do if you don't have the government?
Dogma, it's observation.
Okay, but what do you do about this particular problem? How do you solve this? We've got this situation where really the cable companies and the phone companies have an iron grip on our internet access, and if they choose to, as they seem to be, acting in their own business interests, not in the interests of the nation and the people of the nation, then what do we do? How do we prevent that?
Set up another set of channels. You compete with them, of course.
Well, who's going to do that?
Well, CenturyTel's got their own system out there. Verizon's got one. Sprint has got the that wireless thing going on, the WiMAX, which you can subscribe to in many parts of the country. It's not a complete monopoly.
No, it's a duopoly or
no, that's a triopoly in some places. But it's beside the point. These other guys couldn't compete.
They're all colluding with each other.
Leo, don't you believe in technology?
I do. But the problem is there's already a mess made. When in the dial-up era, you had many choices, but as soon as it became
hurt by the situation so far, because you're probably the one guy who could be. What's that around here?
It's so far no problem. However, I do fear when I see these bandwidth caps put on. I'll tell you, I've been hurt outside the U.S. in countries like Canada and Australia, where they have much lower bandwidth caps. Many of our viewers in Australia can't watch the video because it would use up their bandwidth cap. And I fear that time is rapidly coming to the United States. And it's by the way, it's not an interest of protecting their constrained resources because, and John and I, you've had this fight many times with me over the cost of bits. I don't think it's that. I think it's to protect their entrenched businesses, their premium cable channels.
Well, that could be, Leo, but let's take another look at this. What has the government done about all these antitrust deals? Every time an opportunity comes for them to say no to something like this AT&T upcoming buyout,
right.
They don't say no. They encourage it. So what is the government going to do if you put the FCC in charge? They're going to encourage more of this, and then who's going to get... The thing is, I don't see that they're doing anybody any good now. The net neutrality is a red herring, and it's all boiling down to the point where you're going to have to buy a license to do the show you're doing right now. That's the only way where it's headed. They haven't done anything any good for anybody. They're not stopping this AT&T merger, which is a disaster with T-Mobile. I don't want that. Nobody does.
Well, so what do we do? Do we, I mean, it's one thing to say start a ISP, Jerry, but I don't know if that's a doable thing. If you know, there's a lot of copper in the ground, and I can't start an ISP without the cooperation of the incumbent local carrier, the phone company, or the cable company. And in fact, the cable company's not even required to sell their access. They're the only one.
Well, my problem for years was I couldn't get high-speed access. I was 3 miles from the switch, so I couldn't get copper. And my local cable company didn't at that time do it. But for a while there was, in fact, an internet outfit that did it. It went down when the cables began to provide cheap, high-speed bandwidth, but it worked for a while as a wireless. I built a little Linux box. I set it there, and I set it up, and I had pretty good speed. Then when that went away, Earthlink has satellites. I was, for a while, getting my high-speed access from a satellite.
Oh, that was terrible, though, Jerry. You got to agree.
No, it wasn't terrible. It was very fast throughput. It was slow response time because of the delay between here and there. So websites that were designed to have 8 million calls to other places took forever to load, but a movie didn't take any time.
How about this? What if the government finally released the restrictions on access to the cable and let internet service providers other than Comcast, say, use the Comcast cable to provide internet service, as they've done over the phone lines? If they promoted true competition over the phone lines, you know, right now, if AT&T doesn't want an independent internet service provider to use their copper, they really can make it pretty difficult. I've talked to a lot of independent ISPs who say, hey, this is tough. What if they put some teeth in these regulations, really required access? Then maybe we would have some competition. Admittedly, we only have 2 big pipes into the house, but at least we could have many service providers over those pipes.
I think the wireless business is going to put the cables out of business.
Well, that would be.
I think wired connectivity is doomed.
Then I think the Google Verizon deal, which basically said, well, we'll have net neutrality on wired, but let's not stifle the brand new wireless business, really kind of is even more scary now. They're basically
just make it easy to get into the wireless business, and besides, when it's all done, the Isle of Man will put up a satellite and provide you with satellite.
Let's talk about the Isle of Man space program in just a second. Jerry says Isle of Man is the next big superpower in space. I'm going to have to get a map out, Jerry. I don't even know where they are.
Is that a .im domain?
Oh, .im. Maybe it is. I have a .im domain. We have TWiT.im.
I'll bet that's it.
Yeah, I bet it is. Well, let's take a break. We're going to come back. Jerry Pournelle is here. Steve Gibson, John C. Dvorak. If you're in the chat room, I'd love to get some questions for these guys. I know you'd probably like to talk to them. It's kind of fun to have some of the great legends of the tech journalism business on with us right now. Before we go, though, back to our conversation, let me mention our friends at Citrix. I know these guys know Citrix. Ed Iacobucci and his team. Ed worked at IBM, came over to Microsoft to work on Windows NT, and as a result, he was still working at IBM, but they just helped out Microsoft with Windows NT. As a result, nobody knew the inside guts of Windows better than Ed Iacobucci. And Citrix was the result, a great company that does enterprise desktop sharing. And, of course, they have some great consumer products, and we talk about them a lot, including GoToMyPC. I don't know if you've ever tried GoToMyPC. I know there are a lot of choices when it comes to remote access to your desktop. But I got to tell you, Go to My PC is the fastest, the easiest to use. You'll set it up in minutes. You don't need the IT department to do any port forwarding. It's 128-bit SSL encrypted. It's got NAT traversal, which I wouldn't know what that means, except for Mr. Gibson's explained it all to me in great detail. Go to My PC, and now on the iPad, too. So here's the deal. You could try it free for 30 days right now. Visit gotomypc.com/twit. You install it on your Mac or PC. Once you've got it installed, go to the iTunes store on your iPad, get the free client, and now you can surf right over to gotomypc.com, enter your secure username and password, and you're actually running Windows or Mac on the iPad. It is actually mind-boggling. Remote access from your home, from vacation, from a hotel, anywhere you go, as fast as if you're there, as easy to use. You can run any program, access any network resource, even send and receive email. It's a true convenience. And very affordable, too. Free for the next 30 days. Go to mypc.com/twit. GOTOMYPC.com/twit. Back we go to our TWiT panel. Jerry's up and about looking for something. I don't know what you're looking
I was hanging something. I was trying to get that bright sunspots off of me, but I
like it. You're shining.
All right.
Tell us about the...
There I am.
Oh, I see it there. Yeah, that's fine. Tell us, what's this Isle of Man thing?
The Isle of Man has a very high-tech promotion. I think they're trying to be a sort of Silicon Valley in the middle of the United Kingdom. They are part of the United Kingdom. The Queen is the sovereign, but they are not part of the outfit that's run by the Parliament at Westminster. They have their own parliament. In fact, I think they claim it's the oldest parliament in Europe or something of the sort. I thought the Icelandic owl thing was. But anyway, they seem to want to promote some of my old pro-technology lectures that I made back in the 70s in the doom period when everybody was saying that, you know, by the year 2005, we're going to have all starved to death, and there's going to be this mass die-off of people, and I basically said that isn't the case. So they're trying to set me up to do my old lectures that I used to go around doing at colleges, and I'm actually looking for trying to set up a technology situation. And, of course, we got the new Byte coming.
Yeah, well, here it is. Here's a video from the Isle of Man. I don't know who these guys are. Chamber of Commerce promoting their new space program. You're right, Steve. They're .im.
Ah.
They've had 33 people look at this video in the last year.
Whoa.
Wow.
And look at this. The Isle of Man is the 5th nation, they say, likely to return to the moon. They're going to go to the moon?
Well, who's number 2, 3, and 4?
U.S., Russia, China, Korea. I don't know who else is going to the moon, but you wouldn't put.
Haven't the Japanese got a
Japanese? That's right, Alice. Yeah. Alice, is that a country?
No, Alice. It's from the Jackie Gleason show. Get it?
Oh, to the moon, Alice, to the moon.
I say Isle of Man, but the point is the Japanese are perfectly capable of putting up a satellite.
Should we go back to the moon? Should manned space flight be back? I know you're a big proponent of civilian space travel, Jerry.
Well, you're asking the wrong guy if you want an information answer, because I'm very predictable on the subject. Isn't information the unpredictable? I mean, obviously, I think we ought to go back. I'm the chairman of the Lunar Society.
But why?
For heaven's sake. First, why not? But it's a perfectly good
because
place
it's expensive.
To live. Well, it can be very profitable. The moon is made of a lot of things, and we now know there's water there, so there is nothing. You don't have to import much in order to be able to live there. It's an easier place to live than, let's say, Iowa was in 1840.
Or Oakland today.
I think that's a good billboard.
Today, yeah.
The moon, easier than Iowa.
Well, Leo, the whole West was settled by pioneers in covered wagons. What you probably don't know is that the cost of a covered wagon with a team of oxen and plows and rifles and axes and the whole outfit to go out and homestead, delivered in Independence, Missouri in 1870 was about $100,000 in $90.
Wow.
In other words, these were upper middle class people deciding to get the heck away from Dodge because the government had got too oppressive, and they were looking for a place where they could have what they thought was freedom.
It was the original Tea Party.
If you were on the moon,
great
what
extent.
could you do other than just jump real far?
What do you do here? what is your usual day here? If you're on, I mean, if you're talking about recreation, among other things, you can fly. I mean, fly with wings.
How about Mars? There's
no air.
You obviously you have to put the air in. I don't know how to go to Mars. That doesn't mean.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jerry, but only because I read a lot of your books and other great science fiction literature, and I just love the idea. It's fair, it seems like the future belongs out there.
Well, Arthur Clarke said it probably better than anybody else. If the human race is to have a future, then for 90% of its existence, the word ship will mean spaceship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
we have to get off this
otherwise
one
we
planet.
have no future.
Right.
So if we were to terraform the moon, then I guess that would be a great place. Then
I
we'd
don't know how
have
to terraform the moon. I know how to terraform Mars, but I don't know how to do it with today's technology. I don't know how to do it in the sense that it's an engineering project. Building a lunar colony is engineering, not science. We know how to do that.
Yeah, but then you're
Getting
stuck
to
inside
Mars
again.
is science. I don't know how to keep people alive for 2 years, which is about to pass, or a year and a half, or a year, or even 9 months, in space transit because of solar flares and various other things.
Oh,
The space radiation environment's pretty bad.
Yep.
And the one thing we're absolutely certain of is that if you have something like, if you had 33 inches of water between you or if you have 14.7 pounds per square inch worth of medium Z materials between you and the space environment, you can survive. How do we know? Because that's what we have. That's what Earth has. We've got the atmosphere between us and the space environment, and that has taken care of the solar flares and all the rest of it. But we don't know. I don't know how to get people to Mars. That doesn't mean that we won't learn how, but that's science and not just engineering. But I do know how to put 3.5 meters of lunar regolith between you and the space environment. You just tunnel under it.
Dig a hole, right?
Yeah.
Did you see that Richard Branson now wants to do a submarine?
He's got one. It's a beautiful looking thing, too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way that's like space exploration. There's the deep ocean we know is little or less.
I used to be on the board of directors of the Ocean Living Society, which also wanted to build essentially ocean colonies.
So he's going to later this year. He's going to go to 36,000 feet below the surface, the Mariana Trench.
The bottom of the Mariana Trench, yeah.
No one's ever been down there, obviously.
But we don't know what's there at all. It's a subduction zone.
It's crazy. Are you
Well,
excited
it's a-
about that?
Well, it's a great place to put nuclear waste.
I guess.
Well, that kind of killed the conversation.
I wasn't thinking of it that way. Maybe there's something down there might not like that so much.
I doubt there's much down there, but you never know.
You don't know till you get
You
there.
don't know. We certainly didn't know that there was a non-oxygen, no photosynthesis life forms around volcanic vents under the ocean until
Right.
a few decades ago.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to really upset any super powerful life forms that, were just tolerating us being up here on the crust.
No, and you don't want to upset Big Juju and the gods, but
You got to take a chance sometimes.
the gods tell you you'll fall off of the edge of the earth if you try to get to go west from Spain.
You gotta admire Richard Branson. I mean, here's a guy who just doesn't.
yeah.
He just doesn't quit. This is a crazy, nutty idea. How does this get to 36,000 feet? I mean, doesn't it just the pressure down there must be intense. What keeps this thing from just squishing like a tin can?
Same thing that keeps a diver from squishing like a tin can at 300 feet. 300 feet is 10 atmospheres, you know.
Well, what's 36,000 feet? That must be...
36,000, well, divide by 33 feet.
What do they pressurize the inside?
He did say that the submarine has a one single, huge, incredibly thick quartz window that they've been carefully polishing and milling. I guess like any defect in it could cause a structural weakness in this, but it's going to have a big window on it.
It's incredibly brave. What is the
That's
deepest?
really neat.
What is the deepest we've gone? Manned vessels have gone so far.
You do understand you balance the inside and the outside pressure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You have to. You'd have to have as much pressure pushing out as pushing
Leo,
in.
I think that the number you're looking for is classified.
Although it's known to be about 20,000, I think. So only about half that distance.
Jiminy Christmas. So you think that the military's gone deep, but we just don't know how deep?
You don't.
You do?
I don't have to say.
Oh.
Come on, Jerry, you can tell us.
Tell us, Jerry. We won't tell. Nobody watches this.
Kevin Rose on the show.
Nobody watches this show anyway, Jerry. You're all right. You're safe.
No, us old spooks like to spook you. So
That's the old. They put the finger by the side of the nose, say, "I'll never tell."
yeah.
So the Mariana Trench, deepest unexplored point on our planet, starts at 11,000 feet, but the bottom of it goes all the way down. They're going to do 5. He's a brave fella. I'm not sure I'd get in line for this trip. Would you?
I think what's so fun is to take a camera down there. There's a bunch of freaky looking things down there.
I want to see what's down there. May not be
Oh,
anything at that pressure. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I'd sure like to see.
Well, we know there are some very strange things at very deep depths because sometimes they get washed up. And of course, they pretty well explode because they come up too fast.
Right.
You do understand that the whole the thing about surviving in that kind of environment is the pressure inside and the pressure outside have to be the same. And when you change it, that change has to be fairly gradual. That's why if you scuba dive at 400 feet, as I have, it takes longer to come up than
Right.
you got to spend down there
Right.
while you were there. You just have to. One of the nice dives is off Jamaica because there's a mountain that comes up and you go down to the bottom and then you spiral your way back up it, which is really kind of a nice dive. Because you have to come up slow. If you come up fast, you'll explode. That's probably not good for you.
No. You want to keep the inside on the inside and the outside on the outside.
And of course, when you have that big a window, there's a lot of square inches on that. So when you're talking about 36,000 pounds per square inch of pressure, that's multiply that by the number of square inches on that window, and you don't want much pressure differential between you and the outside.
Yeah,
the
apparently
inside and the outside have to be balanced at all times.
Apparently, they're currently doing pressure tests, and the sub is holding up. So,
Yeah.
wow.
What you do is you take really compressed gases with you, and you use that to pressurize the inside, and then you let that out as you come up.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of this. This is in Slashdot today.
Oh.
An investigator for the Air Force. This is FBI releases document confirming the Roswell UFO.
Oh, bulls.
What?
Yeah, what?
If it were anywhere other than Slashdot.
It's not April
Oh,
Fool's, kids.
Slashdot. I missed that part.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute.
Next.
No, wait a minute. No, Slashdot. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. They link back to the FBI.gov website.
Yeah, and the FBI.gov's website is going to show you that the Air Force picked up a whole bunch of junk out at the crash site because what crashed was a mogul.
Oh.
And Mogul was you remember, if you know anything about the Roswell case, the big thing they make about it is this substance that was hard to tear and flexible and metallic. It was mylar, aluminized mylar, which nobody had in those days. But a balloon that was made of it crashed outside of Roswell. It was the Mogul project, which was an acoustic. It basically flew balloons over the Soviet Union and listened to what it could hear on the way by, and nobody wanted that to happen. My first impression when I heard about the Roswell thing is I thought the bombardment group had laid an egg. That is, they'd lost a nuclear weapon out there, and the secrecy stuff came in real hard. It didn't turn out to be that. It turned out to be the Mogul crash. Ever since then, Roswell's made a hell of a good living. The entire city out of aliens and the Roswell story. But in fact, there is not much to the story.
It's been a good 40-year run.
Flock, my friend Clara Flock was a real true believer. He really believed in UFOs. He would MUFON and all these other things. He got a grant to go write the Roswell story, and he dug into it, and he dug up everything, and he discovered that it was all explainable. Oh. Poor guy, it damn near broke his heart.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to change subjects then. Enough space.
By the way, I want to mention something here.
John
which is
C. Dvorak. By the way, you have a new show, X3. Tell me about that.
X3 is essentially a deconstruction of the old Cranky Geek show, but with a few changes. In other words, we just do one topic, and then that's the show, but we do a bunch of them at once, so you can watch a whole bunch of
It's
news
really
items. Short. Yeah, they're kind of short, but you can watch as many as you want because we do like 10 every time we do them.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that's changed is it's kind of the same set, but I've changed my thinking about having guests because I find it was
suck.
annoying to book guests.
Yeah. It's too much
and
work.
it's just a lot of work, and I didn't feel like doing that. So I like the idea of a fixed group of guests. So I got Andrew Eisner, who's a really smart guy, and he knows everything, and he works for Retrievo, and he used to be an editor for one of the big magazines. And Joe Ingo, who's a super nerdy tech, Apple-oriented character who knows all kinds of weird stuff I never knew about. And, he's a DNS guy. And so we just have just our group of three, and we take news stories and we discuss them. And everybody's, I don't have to worry about people that don't know what they're talking about and all the rest of it. So it's a slightly different show. You can go to x3.mevio.com if you want to watch it.
This is cool. So 3 experts, 1 topic.
Right.
And an ad.
3 interesting experts, 1 topic.
Yeah, no, I like the guests. Cool. I think that's a great idea, John. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I just wanted to ask you about that. Oh, another question. Are you a ham?
Oh, yeah. I've been a ham for since November.
I didn't believe it. They told me because we're going to start.
Why wouldn't you believe it? It's not that hard to do.
Well, that's the only possible explanation.
You.
Well, you don't have to learn Morse anymore, do you?
Yeah.
No.
But you took the test. You got the basic thing. Are you going to get equipment and start broadcasting?
I already have the equipment. I got all kinds of. I've been collecting gear for a while. I got a bunch of gear. Yeah, I can broadcast.
Well, we're going to get you on our show. We're doing a new show for hams called Ham Nation.
Ham Nation. It sounds like something. It sounds like a food show.
Ham Nation.
So no, the thing is, I picked up this paranoid attitude some time ago about the fact that if everything goes, especially during Katrina, that if everything goes down, the guys who saved the day were the ham operators because they were on the air while there was no power anyplace else. You can have you have a battery, you can start broadcasting. And I came to the conclusion that at some point, it's probably a good skill to own in a neighborhood.
Wow.
And I think a lot of younger people aren't exploring it. And I would say right now to anybody out there listening to this, if you know the basic stuff about computer technology and how to build a machine, for example, about half of the ham license answers already for the initial license, the technician's license, and you can go. It takes probably very little study. There's all kinds of online help and lesson plans and testing you can do. You can test over and over again until you get it, and then you go take a test. It's not that difficult, and I think more people should do it. And it also prevents guys like that Peter King in Congress who wants to steal all the amateur bands and use them for some commercial crap that's probably not going to do anybody any good. When the hams, like I said, had saved the day at Katrina because the government wasn't doing anything. So I think this is important.
Well, if there's a disaster, I'm moving in with you.
Well, John's absolutely right. One of the worst things that ever happened to this country was when we abolished the old Civil Defense Network and set up a Federal Emergency Management Agency. Civil Defense was all local, organized, local people, ham radio operators, retired firemen, retired military, retired cops. And it was all voluntary, and each one was sort of dedicated to the disaster you're likely to have, rather than having an agency in Washington that's supposed to be expert on hurricanes, oil well explosions, earthquakes, and you see what I'm getting at. It's just stupid. There is no way to federalize emergency management.
Well, and Jerry, I'll bet you remember there was a book that I just worshipped when I was a kid, and that was the ARRL handbook.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Amateur
of course.
radio.
I had a ham license a long time
Radio
ago.
Did you?
Daily.
I just don't have time anymore, and I haven't.
Steve, are you a ham?
The Army taught me how to do Morse code, so I got one back in the days when it was really tough because you had to do 13 words a minute to get a ham license. And
I bet the technology today is really beautiful, though, the equipment.
John, do you have you put up a mast, or are you going to start broadcasting on the single sideband? I mean, what are you?
No, well, single sideband is not what you do.
I don't know.
But yeah,
I'm making
I'll have. I've been on the air a couple of times. I got a mobile rig right now, but I'll probably put an antenna up. I've got it's not that hard to do the whole process. It's just a little time consuming. My problem is not so much doing all that. I've got all the gear. It's just getting organized. I'm a disorganized person, and it's just very annoying.
Well, that's why when they said John's a ham, I said, no, he's a disorganized person. There's no way.
What are you, at 10 meters?
I got,
he's got a walkie-talkie. Give him a break.
No, I got some. I have some VHF gear right now, but I'm getting some higher end stuff.
AARRL, American Amateur Radio
Relay League.
Relay League. And I imagine you can still get that book, Steve. I bet you anything.
Well, they put out a handbook still, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, there you go. The Ham Radio License Manual Revised 2nd Edition.
Yeah, but I mean, the ARRL handbook was a lot more than just the license manual.
Oh, it was a Bible of technology.
And I'm sure it's still there somewhere.
Oh, that's cool. I got to find it. That's great. Now you make me want to get a license. I could do these shows.
Leo, you could get. It would take you about a week. It would take you a week of study.
When they told me you got a license, I thought, this test must be so easy.
Who needs the internet?
I
We
actually
got radio.
I went to.
Do you think I'm an idiot? What are you saying? This test must be so easy.
I just thought there's no way John studied for and took a test. It had to be like just the simplest thing. So I went to the test, and it was hard. It was really hard, so I honor you, John C. Dvorak.
Leo, you got to remember, John used to be an engineer.
Oh. Do you still have the hat?
I have my. You're thinking of a train engineer. I think you're getting these things mixed up.
With the stripes.
John C. Dvorak. Oh, you have a Dalmatian. That's right. John C.
You should take you should go do this
I
test.
took the test on the air. I took it right here on TWiT Live, and I just was horrible.
And he flunked it.
Not only did I flunk it, I had no idea even what they were asking.
Oh.
Don't cackle, Jerry. Nothing to laugh about. If you go to arrl.org, they have the whole thing, so you can take they have tests. Question. See, this is what I did. I did the question pool. See, so you could take the questions and see. You got the technician class, right, John?
Yep.
That's the one for dummies.
Yeah, it's the one for dummies, but I'll get the general one when I feel like it. It's not that hard. I'm like 2 or 3 questions away from passing that.
Wait a minute, though. The radio works even if you don't have a license, right? I mean, if it's an emergency and Katrina 2 has happened, you plug in and talk to somebody.
You could, but you'll be caught. There's a bunch of these.
Not if there's a disaster going on. What are they going to do?
Amongst this group of people, there's a whole bunch of these, I don't know how to describe them except maybe ankle biters or these very officious hall monitor types who are basically monitoring 24/7, looking for guys like you trying to cheat the system, and they will bust you and you will get fined and it will cost you a lot of money. It'll be a hassle.
John, which of the following entities recommends transmit, receive channels and other parameters for auxiliary and repeater stations? A, Frequency Spectrum Management Manager, B, Frequency Coordinator, C, FCC Regional Field Officer, D, International Telecommunications Union.
There's supposed to be 4 answers. You only read 3.
He read 4.
I think the coordinator.
It's all bureaucracy.
I'm going to say the FCC Regional Field Office.
No, it's the coordinator. I'm sure of it.
Oh, all right. Well, that's why you have a license. Everybody agrees it's the Frequency Coordinator.
Yay.
What is the FCC Part 97 definition of an amateur station, John C. Dvorak? Never mind. I'm not gonna belabor this.
You can grill me all
passed
you
it.
want. It's
You
not going to
passed
do
it.
you any good.
I'm going to have to study. Did you study? For a week you studied?
No, I studied for about a month.
Wow. I'm just so impressed.
So that's to see, and that belies your claim that you're disorganized, and that required some organization,
No
John.
kidding.
No, it didn't. It required a computer.
The interesting thing about it is all those questions have to do with legalities and regulations.
Right.
They have absolutely nothing to do with the technical proficiency.
There are a few.
It used to be that test made you actually understand Ohm's law and
power and radiation.
There's a
and
few questions about.
There's a couple of there's about 4 calculations in there.
Yeah. I'm going to have an FCC third class ticket. That was all about Ohm's
I had
law
one
and
of
all
those.
that
I had
stuff.
one of those in the day when you had to have one to be on the radio.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Didn't we all? Is there anybody in the world who never got a class 3? Really?
Well, I think you got us, Jerry. No, they're probably
everybody in the
had
world has one. Everybody.
Actually, I had a Class A at one time, and if waving it up against the transmitter would have fixed the problem, I could have done it.
All right, we're going to take a break. This is so much fun. I don't know how much tech news. I do want to talk a little bit about YouTube making a big move. Google's video arm. First of all, they have announced that they're going to sink $100 million into creating original programming. This is kind of like Netflix. Netflix has started to buy programming and has intimated they're going to start creating shows as well. And then YouTube has announced something called YouTube live streaming broadcasting, and a number of broadcasters, not TWiT, but a number of other broadcasters are already using
How come you were left out of the deal? You got screwed on this, Leo.
Therein lies a tale. I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that myself. You do more live broadcasting than all the rest of those combined.
Well, apparently I'm not as good as Joe's, bargain basement garage sale radio program incorporated. But before we
Boy,
do
do you look miffed.
I'm a little miffed. I got over it. I was a little miffed for a little while.
I'd stay miffed if I were you.
Yeah. It looks good on me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Little fire. It adds a little blood.
Blame Arrington.
Actually, I blamed a former employee, and she got really hurt, so I'm not going to blame anybody. I know who to blame. I'm going to blame Hollywood, and I'll tell you why in a second. Before we do that, I would like to talk a little bit about Squarespace.com, the secret behind exceptional websites. I don't need to tell the sophisticated, intelligent, discerning audience that listens to this show that if you don't have your own website, you kind of really don't exist these days on the internet. You need a website. You probably already have one, so I'm not going to bother you. But think of all your family and friends and maybe coworkers, maybe your favorite restaurant. They don't have a website, and you're wondering why not. Well, here's a great way to get them started. Go to squarespace.com/twit and click that big green try it for free button. You don't need a credit card. You don't need anything really but the name of a site, a password, an email address, and this little captcha to make sure a robot's not doing it. And you have absolute access for the next 2 weeks to all of the great features of Squarespace. You can import and export data from all the existing APIs, Movable Type, WordPress, TypePad, and Blogger. Great social integration. Just plug and play little widgets to Flickr and Twitter and even any RSS feed, so you can completely customize this without any code. Of course, the great thing about Squarespace is if you are a coder, if you want to do CSS or JavaScript, they support that as well. A great iPhone and iPad app that allows you to post and monitor and manage and even get stats on your site. Oh, boy, and the stats, they're beautiful. Great templates, photo galleries, forums, form building, data collection, and more. Squarespace, we use it for our Inside Twit blog, and it is just fantastic. It's hosting plus the best software for content management in the world. I want you to try it free right now. Squarespace.com/twit. And as I said, if you have an existing site, you can easily try it and import all of your content. All the links will be preserved, all the images, the comments, everything, so that you can see what your current site might look like under Squarespace. Version 6 is on its way, and it's incredible. They've just done such a great job Give it a try. In fact, just look at the website. They've got great videos and examples. It couldn't be easier to get an idea of how to get started. Every Squarespace site is unique and beautiful. Squarespace.com/twit. If you haven't tried it yet, do yourself a favor. Give it a shot. Absolutely free for the next 2 weeks. Squarespace.com/twit. The secret behind exceptional websites. Jerry Pournelle, John C. Dvorak, Steve Gibson with us talking about the good old days and the modern days. Steve does a great show with us every week. Every Wednesday we do a Security Now, which is in many ways a kind of graduate course in computing, because we often cover basic computing topics on the way to explaining security issues and so forth. If you haven't listened to it, give it a try. He's also at grc.com. That's where his SpinWrite program is. Jerry's been writing, Steve's been writing software as long as Jerry's been writing columns, I think. Maybe even longer, I don't know.
Yeah, since I was 14, so yeah.
That's quite a while.
Wow.
Quite a while. I don't know what John's...
When did you start, Steve?
In high school, when I was
what year did you start doing the software?
But 1970 would have been.
Wow. Was that Fortran? What were you using?
No, that was on a PDP-8. That was my first assembly language.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's, if you look at Steve's video, he's got those blinking lights behind him over his left shoulder. Those are PDP-8s, not original PDP-8s. Those are kits, right?
Right. Those are emulations. But the PDP-8 was such a success that it ended up getting reduced to a single chip. It just refused to die. And so someone pulled all those single chips together and built a little kit so you could recreate the PDP-8 in its entirety and run all the software and things on it, too.
You remember the PDP-8 that was built into a desk?
Yeah.
It's called Microsoft Surface.
No, there was a no. It was literally you had an engineering. I had one. You had an engineering office desk, and instead of a file cabinet drawer, there was a PDP-8 in it. That was one of the things you could get if you were a sufficiently resourceful engineer in the aerospace business in those days.
That's pretty cool.
I started learning programming on an IBM 650 in the 50s.
And what was that? Was that COBOL?
IBM 50 was no, it had a binary language. The language was 10 bits. 10 bytes. Okay? The first 2 bytes were an opcode, which told it what to do, like load accumulator, add to this, subtract from that, divide, that type of thing, okay? The next 4 bits were the address of the data, and the last 4 bits were the address of the next instruction, because there wasn't any program counter in the thing.
Wow.
And the memory was on a drum.
Didn't have a stack. It
was a drum. No, there were no stacks. There was none of that. And it had a drum. I had to invert a matrix on a thing like that. It was incredible.
It took hours.
There weren't no Fortran. John McCarthy was trying to write a Lisp for it at the time. I was trying to invert matrices for it. So, John went on to be a computer scientist. I stayed in aerospace.
Well, and back then, when you had drum as the main memory, the challenge was optimizing it for speed. You would literally set your instructions so that they were at the right place in the drum's rotation, so that the computer could access it at the right time.
Somebody wrote an optimizer for it after a while, but yeah, for a while that was you had to figure out where. Otherwise, it would have just missed where it should have got the next data, and the drum would have to do another rotation. It had 50,000 words. A word was 10 bytes in those days. It had 50,000 words of memory on that drum. That was the memory. The actual memory in machine memory was like 10 words.
Wow.
Right, actual registers.
10 words.
Yeah.
How fast did it run WordStar?
Wasn't anything like WordStar. And, of course, you did everything by... to do anything big, you had to essentially card punch intermediate results out on cards and then have them read back in again when it needed them.
Wow.
It was not an easy thing to do, but it beat the heck out of doing it with a Monroe calculator.
That was real computing back then.
Yeah, when men were men.
That's
No.
right.
No, when men were graduate students and in utter terror.
I have to admit, when I was in college, it was still the big iron, and I had no interest because I didn't want to go to the lab in the middle of the night with my punch cards. It just didn't attract. And it wasn't until you could have it on your desk, however small, and have a personal computer, that it was of any interest at all to me. But once,
and that was a PDP-8. The PDP-8 was a kind of personal computer for high-end engineers, and it ran Fortrans, and you could do things with it in those days, but it took a long time to get there.
Did any of you know James Gosling? He left. Of course, he was not happy when Sun got acquired by Oracle, and was very clear about that. He's gone on. He's moved to Google. He's the guy who wrote Java, created Java. And I consider, I think, one of the premier computer scientists out there. Google's kind of, it's interesting. Google's starting to look like a mature industry, a mature business these days compared to its young, scrappy days. Larry Page, though, is back running it. Eric Schmidt left this week. And Larry Page, the founder of Google, is back in charge. And already he's reorganized, put together a committee of 6 to run the company. Missing out on Marissa Mayer. I don't know if this is a snub to Marissa or an oversight, or maybe she's just busy. But she was on the big committee that ran Google, and she's no longer in this newly reformed office. I don't know if it's the office of the chairman or what, but she is still in charge, as far as I can tell, of Google Mobile. But mobile is not one of the big 6 categories, and I think that's one of the ways you can tell what this new Google is all about, is looking at who these executives are and what they're in charge of. You can also say, and I'll give you that list in a second, but you can also say that there's some indicator by the fact that Google's announced that bonuses this year for all Google employees will be directly tied to Google's success in social. Not search.
What?
Not search, not ads, in social.
I quit.
Well, and
That's
you
their
know,
doom.
you know that Google is beginning to be a real company too, when they're bumping heads again with our government and needing permission to do mergers that they're looking for. I think they got approval just recently for their travel
ITA.
right.
Yeah. So the new big 6 are Andy Rubin, mobile. He's the guy behind Android. Vic Gundotra, social. These are all senior vice presidents. Vic, you see a lot of Vic. He was at Microsoft. He's the guy they bring on. Oh, look at that little. Geez, is that a wolf?
Yes.
Holy cow. Okay, I'll be good. Wow, I thought it was a little puppy until I saw his eyes.
It's a her. But
it's a her, yeah. Whew, she's Siberian? What is she?
Yeah, she's a Siberian Husky. She's close to a wolf as you'll get for a domestic animal.
Holy cow.
That's a great dog.
Beautiful dog.
Yeah,
Sheds.
she's lovely.
Sheds.
Oh, boy, do they shed. Believe me, they shed. Especially in Southern California, they shed.
It's hot.
Fortunately,
You can
they do
make
it
a
all at
sweater
once.
from this fur. So you can actually knit it into a sweater. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, you can. You can card it and spin it and make sweaters out of her.
Yep. Don't let it rain on you, though.
Why?
So Google's
You smell like
actually
a big
gonna try
wet
to get
dog.
into
You'll smell
social.
like a big wet dog. I'm sorry. Thank you, Steve. Sundar Pichai is VP of Chrome, SVP of Chrome. I actually met him. He's the guy behind Chrome OS. Salar Kamangaris is now YouTube and video. He's actually employee number 8 at Google, one of the big shots there. Alan Eustace, search. Susan Wojcicki, ads. So that's it. Mobile, socials, Chrome, video, search, and ads. Those are the big 6 categories going forward at Google. And as I said, they're going to base their bonus
Compensation,
structure on social.
I
Any
think that's
word on
crazy.
whether they're going to try to revive another agreement on the Google copying now that judge has thrown out the Authors Guild settlement that they had negotiated?
Yeah, she basically said back to the drawing board. You didn't include, it was an agreement between the publishers, the Authors Guild, and Google, And they set aside, what was it, $125 million fund for orphan works. And she said, no, you didn't include all the stakeholders in this. Of course, the other stakeholders, the people who are anxious about this, are Microsoft and Amazon, who don't want Google to undermine their book business.
Yeah.
I
thought it was a good agreement.
It's a little disappointing.
There are authors who don't like it, but I thought it was a good agreement, and I wanted to see it accepted.
Well, the issue is orphaned works, isn't it? But by definition, nobody cares about orphaned works, so what are we worried about it for?
But it's not true that nobody cares. It's that nobody knows whether they care or not. I'll give you an example. I've got some older anthologies that I edited, and they contain some works by people. Some of them are old enough that the people who contributed to the stories have vanished. I don't know where they are. They're dead. I don't know who owns the copyright. I don't know what, and I suspect that the copyright holder doesn't know they have anything worth anything. It isn't going to be worth much, but if I put one of those books like War World up on Amazon, we might make enough money that each contributor would get $1,000. But the contributors' heirs don't even know that this 30-year-old story is worth a nickel. Well, they probably don't know they own it.
Well, so how do you solve that?
Well, the settlement said that I would pay the money into essentially an escrow account, and it would sit there until somebody came, or I'd get it back after a certain amount of time.
That seems like a good way to do it.
Well, the big objection to the settlement was a bunch of authors said, but they scanned my work without my permission. Because you understand, Google didn't know which were orphans and which weren't, so they scanned everything.
They decided it'd be better to apologize and ask permission. They just went ahead and do it.
You can't ask permission from the people who don't know they own something.
Right.
And so they scanned everything, and then they offered to pay essentially about $40 per scanned work to the copyright holders for the insult. Basically, they scanned about 40 of my books, and they offered me something like books and articles and things. Yeah, and they offered me something like $300 for the insult.
Well, they had to scan things, so they had some source material for their CAPTCHA engine.
Well, they
people
scanned
to
the
correct
entire
it.
library, the University of Michigan, University of Virginia, and a couple other places. They scanned everything.
But so what? Do you mind that they did that? Do you wish they didn't? Were they selling it? They weren't selling your books.
No, they weren't selling it, and that's the point. There are a lot of authors, they scanned my work without permission. And my view is, yeah, but they have offered to pay me for the insult. They didn't cost me anything. It didn't cost me anything that they scanned it. They haven't made it available to the world.
It's just in a search index.
They want to. Now, one of the things is unless you opt out, which is to say, I don't want you to be my agent and offer this for sale on the internet, then they retain the right to do that. And a lot of people say, no, it's got to be opt-in. Well, but opt-in doesn't solve the problem of the orphan work because nobody knows who's in.
Right.
Far as I'm concerned, it was a perfectly good compromise. They're going to pay me for the insult, and they allow me to say, no, I'll handle my own rights, thank you. You don't need to. That's really all I needed out of it, and I probably have a bigger stake in it than the one who's really unhappy is Ursula Le Guin, and she has about as big a stake as me, and she and I are in absolute disagreement on whether it was a good idea or not.
She filed an amicus brief, and it was
yes. And Ursula is, you understand, Ursula is not crazy. She's not a fanatic. She's not. I mean, we disagree. It's an honest disagreement.
What does she want Google to do? Make it opt-in?
Opt-in. She says they shouldn't have done it. They should erase all those things they scanned without permission and start over. Now, I think that's going a bit far myself. But I understand her point of view, which is that this was my work. I didn't give you permission to do that.
Right.
And if I have not given you permission to do it, you should not have done it.
Right.
And I don't accept the insult money you have offered me.
But there is a social benefit to Google scanning all of this in. Does that outweigh the author's interest?
I think so. Ursula doesn't, and it's interesting because Ursula is basically left wing in politics.
And you're a conservative.
I'm conservative. I'm somewhat more conservative than libertarian, I guess, but somewhere in that nexus of libertarian and conservative. So yes, I think the social benefits are important in it. I think that keeping Google's goal was to keep alive everything ever written.
Right.
I think that's a noble ambition.
Yeah.
No,
I
remember
totally
that
agree with Jerry
the whole
on
notion
this
of
deal.
copyright was created for social benefit.
I remember from the get-go
Right,
when we started talking about this stuff, it was always, when the computer game began, it was, one of the great things that will happen, all the works of all mankind will be digitized and safe forever, and we got to digitize the Library of Congress, and everything should be digitized. And then nobody did anything. The government wouldn't do it. Nobody would do any digitization. So Google says, okay, we'll do it.
Actually, Microsoft did it for a while.
Complains.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I don't understand what all the shouting's about. I think that Google did something good. I think their goal was noble, and I think the method that they used to accomplish it was reasonable. And with me, it's $300-400 at stake, which is not money. So,
Right.
My view is that this was a good thing, and they ought to be encouraged to do it. But it does not seem to be the case. The judge didn't agree anyway.
So you guys have any thought about Google getting into the production business, spending $100 million, according to the Wall Street Journal, on original content? It's an interesting play for Google, but in the past, YouTube's just been, you give us your, in fact, they've been trying to do deals with all the content creators. You give us your stuff, we'll air it, we'll put ads on it, we'll all benefit. Now they said, no, we're going to make our own.
I think it makes much more sense for them to function the way the existing cable companies do, where they see shows and buy shows that are being made by existing producers. To me, that just seems way more sane, unless they want to do something that's like, very different, like super techie tutorials or something.
Can I say something here?
Yeah.
This is not a trivial thing that any bonehead on the street or some guy sitting over there at the Googleplex can do.
Exactly.
There are plenty of companies that went out of business coming and going trying to do this. I mean, this is not an easy thing for people in Hollywood to do, pick and choose, what's a winner and what's not. I think it's a fool's. I think the guys are just going to throw their money away in a bunch of crap.
Now, it's only $100 million.
It's worse than that.
Because they've got too much money.
That's really...
If you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. If you get into the Hollywood game, you're going to come out looking like Hollywood. Because
Or
that's
like
how
Yahoo.
Hollywood is successful because it does things a certain way. The way it does them, I live in this town. What goes on behind the scenes in this town is not very pretty. And if Google wants to get in that game, they're going to find themselves into a milieu that they don't understand, and it may eat them alive.
It won't be the first time. Look at they tried to get in the mobile business. It hasn't worked out so well.
Okay, so let's talk about social.
Yeah, this is their new thing.
Hasn't that ship sailed already?
Well, here's what I think Google's doing. I mean, Facebook, of course, is social, and this is the newest paradigm of search. Remember, we've been through a couple of search paradigms. Yahoo started with a human index. Google quickly eclipsed Yahoo by saying, no, it's too big. We're going to do an algorithmic index of the internet. But that's starting to fall apart. Everybody knows who uses Google or even any other algorithmic search engine. It's gameable. So they're eyeing Facebook, and they're saying, look, Facebook's got all of this information based on who your friends are and what your friends like. That's what the like button is all about. And you lay that on top of search results. Instead of getting search results that are completely algorithmically designed, you get the best of both worlds. You get a human gloss from your friends, from your social graph, as they call it, on top of algorithmic search results, and that's going to beat Google every time. And I think they're terrified that that's exactly what Facebook's going to do. So that's what it sounds like to me, is Google says...
I think you nailed it, Leo.
So what does Google do? Is it too late for them? Is it already... Does the business cycle now move at light speed in Silicon Valley? Is it already over for Google 10 years down the line?
No.
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 No. No.
But this is not Google's, this is not their core competency. What they should do
what is
work
their
on
core competency?
fixing the problem.
Search and ads, right?
Fix the problem.
Make the
Fix
search
the
work.
problem.
Can you?
Yes.
Yes. Can you have algorithmic search that works?
Why not?
It's gameable.
It's gameable now, but you can outgame the gamers. I mean, this is like fighting virus coders. I mean, it's just that you can't stop and say, "Well, we've done our job. We're here. We're here to stay. Let's just milk the cash cow." You can't do that.
Would you agree?
Boy, you and I sometimes fight, but I couldn't agree with you more.
But wait a minute. Wouldn't you agree that the results you're getting from Google are far worse now than they were a year ago?
But I'm saying
they're
that's what
bad.
Jerry
They're
and I say,
evil,
fix the
in fact.
problem.
That's one of the things that bothers me is Google is becoming evil. But that doesn't mean they can't get out of the hole they're digging themselves.
Well, I'm sure they're working on improving search. You know, Matt Cutts, who's responsible for killing search spam, that's pretty much the main problem here, of course, is people getting spammy results into search. Even he admitted, well, we're using some human editorial.
Well, in fact, don't they have Chrome sending feedback back to them from the things that the users do? So, for example, if we're looking at a page of Google search results, they can tell what it is that we filter from their results and what links we click on, and that's very important and powerful information for them to have.
Well, they got to be careful. They can't. I think that there is a toolbar they've introduced, and they're asking people to use this to rate search results and to watch you. So I think they're careful not to build it into the generic Chrome because they know people are sensitive to being watched.
Let me, on the very good chance that there is a Google executive watching this right now, let me give you an example of something evil they're doing, which they probably don't even know they're doing it. My daughter did a sequel to The Mote in God's Eye, which is a very well-known book that Niven and I did 35, 40 years ago and which still sells to this day.
One of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah, well, she did a sequel called Audis, which with our permission and encouragement, and it's her book, we didn't write it, and put it up on Kindle, and she sold 8 or 10,000 copies, something like that now, which is pretty dang good, you know. And she's actually brought in more money than she would have got if she'd gone to a standard publisher and gotten advance and had them publish it. But in the search engines, as soon as she took the digital rights management off of the thing, the next day Google was showing free copies way above hers. When you look for her book, Audis, you'd look up by the name, you'd see up at the top, you'd see the first listing would be some torrent. I think they have fixed that.
They have fixed that because the number one result now is the Amazon.
Which is what it should be. And maybe they have already taken steps to fix it, but it was really, it was disastrous on her sales.
But how is Google evil? I mean, why is that Google's fault?
Their algorithms are not taking into account the legitimacy of the search.
Oh, but now you're causing a huge problem. And you're saying that Google's supposed to weigh in on the merit or the morality of a link?
I think ethically they should. I didn't say legally.
By the way,
I am not looking for an FCC regulation on this.
No, but by the way,
I am not trying to get the government involved. I am trying to get Google to live up to its practice of don't be evil.
This is exactly why Google wants to do social, because Google doesn't want to get in that business. But what they're hoping is if they overlay some curation, not from them, but from your buddies, that they'll avoid this problem. Because
this sounds like, to be honest about it, to me, this sounds like it would be worse with social, because all the people that are involved with social, they're the ones into the bootlegs.
They're going to put the BitTorrent right up there. But at least Google, Google could then say, hey, I'm sorry, it's your friends. You got law-breaking friends.
Look, anybody can be evil and find a darn good reason for having done it. There is no difficulty rationalizing evil behavior.
Thank God.
That doesn't mean that you are right to do things that way. I can always give you a good reason for doing something that you and I both know I shouldn't be doing.
Right. Boy, that's a good lesson, by the way. Thank you, Jerry. I'm going to have to think about that here. I do want to take a little break, and we're going to come back. Lots more to talk about. Jerry Pournelle is here. the author of some of the greatest science fiction work of all time. You mentioned Moten God's Eye, Lucifer's Hammer. Give me a couple more. I got them all.
Well, Lucifer's Hammer, Burning City, there are a whole bunch of them. We're about to put up some more on Kindle.
Good.
The Kindle revolution is enormous. We are selling more copies of Lucifer's Hammer on Kindle now than the last paper edition sold when there was it was still in print and paper.
No kidding.
It probably still is in print and paper. It's been through 45 editions, and I presume there's one still out there. But the Kindle sales of Lucifer's Hammer are quite high. Larry and I are making decent money out of Kindle. Just the Kindle.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
We don't know what we're getting out of Nook and the others because Amazon, after 3 months, pays monthly.
Are you selling it through your publisher, or do the rights revert to you and you're selling it directly now?
It's mine. The rights are reverted, and Niven and I our agent put it up, so she's getting a fee out of it. We could have put it up without her, but since she sold the book in the first place, that didn't seem like a good thing to do.
So there is a moral for authors to get those secondary rights back as quick as you can, because there's
get them back. You get those secondary rights and you put those books up, and by golly, I'll bet you all of Dvorak's old books, if they went up there, including ones you think are way out of date, at 99 cents, I'd bet you sell 10,000 copies.
Yeah, you're probably right. In fact, now you mentioned, I'm going to do that. And I always have a reversion clause in all my contracts.
Do you?
Because it's crazy not to.
Right.
Yeah.
Dvorak's Guide to Telecommunications had a great...
I bet you John could make a book out of some of his old columns and sell it for 99 cents and sell 10,000 copies.
That's a brilliant idea. A look back at the history of the computer revolution, inside track
from back in the 80s.
From
and
year
I will
one.
bet you that a book made up of selected inside tracks with minimal comments by John about, well, this didn't turn out that way, or this turned out that way, but a lot more than I thought it would. I will bet you'd sell 10 to 100,000 copies of a thing like that.
How much doing it?
How much do you make? So, Jerry, how much do you sell them for, and how much do you make?
Okay, at $2.99 and above, it's 70% on Kindle.
Holy moly.
Below $2.99, it's 30%.
So you're making more than $2 a copy, which is more, I'm sure, than you made in the original hardcover.
You got it. But, well, 30% is more than I made in the original. Normal royalty rates from normal publishers is 10%, around 10%. They can go as high as 15%.
John, do you have the rights to the inside track columns? Could you?
Yeah, actually, another thing I do when I do any deals with magazines, I always do a shared rights deal. So they have the right to reprint it, but I have the right to. After 2 weeks.
That's the standard in the copyright law. Without any, your standard agreement in copyright is that you and the publisher both have a non-exclusive anthology right to after they bought first serial.
And Steve, you did already publish a best of, didn't you? I think you did.
Yeah, I have the rights to all my columns, all the InfoWorld columns.
God,
you got them up on Kindle?
No, they're just in paper right now.
Ebooks, baby.
We will have them up by next week.
I think all three of
I
you.
will bet you, Steve, that you will make money if you put them out there for people to be able to buy on Kindle. And do it at a low price. You're not going to get any $10 for them.
No, it's got to be an impulse purchase.
Yeah, and if you're down there at that small amount of money, it's just one click and the guy can do it. A lot of my books have been available through Bain Books as ebooks for 10 years, and they never sold anything.
Right.
And
Amazon.
Because you had to get them on a Kindle, you had to buy the book and then email it to yourself.
Right.
And whereas on Amazon, you see it, and you can have this book for $2.99. Oh, all right, click, and there it is.
So if I go on my Kindle and search for Pournelle, I'll find a bunch of stuff, including those old.
You'll find a lot more of them in the next few weeks.
And you know, Leo, I did want to mention that I thought that Paul Thurrott made a very, very perceptive and salient point the other day. You and he were talking when he was talking about what a sort of a stealth mover Amazon has been.
Oh, man.
That Amazon is sort of quietly doing major things, and because we all think of them sort of as, oh, well, that's Amazon and they sell books, but they're doing, I mean, they've reached out and branched out into so many other areas where they're really making an impact, and we sort of don't pay attention to it. But Paul's point was, if any other company just did one of these things, it would be big news.
Yep.
But somehow the fact that it sort of gets hidden underneath Amazon's, what we're used to thinking of Amazon as, we're really not paying attention to it. But Amazon is a serious mover.
Oh, they're on the move. I mean, it was started with the cloud, of course.
I mean,
Cloud
Borders
player.
is going out of business.
Yeah. Oh, it's
The publishing
Amazon.
industry is completely changed, and yet Amazon is selling ebooks like mad. They're selling more of them than do paperbacks now.
Well, and I might remind everybody that Amazon owns a little company called audible.com. And I was just looking, and Jerry, your books are on Audible. I hope you make
Not
some
only
money.
that, but I make a lot of money out of Audible.
I
books.
like to hear that. There's The Mote in God's Eye, Lucifer's Hammer, Footfall, Inferno, Star Swarm, Oath of Fealty, Escape from Hell. 7 of them.
Yep, and there'll be more. By the way, Star Swarm is a wonderful juvenile. If you haven't read it, you really would like it. Anybody from 10 to 100 years old should like Star Swarm.
Well, it's 10 hours, and it's available to you right now absolutely free. In fact, get 2 of Jerry's books. I'd get Mote in God's Eye and Star Swarm, and you can do it absolutely free right now if you go to audible.com/twit and the number 2. Audible books are audiobooks. There's about 80,000 audiobooks here at audible.com. So it's kind of a bookstore of audiobooks. Now, the nice thing about this, like an ebook, you pick your book and you download it and you've got it. It's on your computer. You can put it on your iPod, your iPhone, your Kindle, your Zune, even GPS devices. A lot of devices support Audible. If you're getting excited about the Game of Thrones, it's debuting on HBO next week. You might want to read the book first. I always like to read the book before I see the movie. Audible.com/twit2. You get 2 books. Let's make them Jerry Pournelle books. Let's celebrate Star Swarm and The Mote in God's Eye. I loved The Mote in God's Eye, although I have to say Lucifer's Hammer. That was damn good. It's hard to pick. I got to tell you. They're great.
Get them all.
Get them all. But start with your first 2 are free because you sign up for the Platinum account. And that's 2 books a month, and your first month is free, and you can keep them if you decide you don't. For some reason you're not into it. It's yours to keep for free forever. But I got to tell you, you're going to stay with it. Audible's just fantastic. I live on Audible. I've been reading those Peter F. Hamilton books, the Dreaming Void books, Steve, and I'm just loving them. Audible.com/twit2. Give it a try. We really thank them. One of our earliest sponsors and still one of our best sponsors. I don't know how I feel about this. I just saw this in the Sydney Morning Herald. An English girl, Madeleine McCann, went missing 4 years ago, and her family has just announced that they are going to do a viral email campaign that they say they hope will reach 80% of the world's inboxes. They're trying to find her. I don't blame her. She was 4 years old. She's 8 years old now. They were in Portugal at the time. You might remember the story.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is this a good use of email?
And so the idea would be that you receive the mail and you
Pass
forward
it
it
on.
yourself to
Pass it
everyone
on.
in your
Yep.
that you know.
So
Yeah.
get ready. See if if you do get that email in your inbox. I think the problem is at this point, spam is so out of control that people just aren't going to see it.
Well, we verified all the details of this because this sounds like, remember that it must have been 10 years ago where there was somebody
Yes.
dying.
The kid was dying and they wanted a card.
And there was all
That's
this
what
sort
it
of
was.
thing.
Yep.
It went all over the internet, and
It's
the
a-
kid
it's a
is
chain
still
letter.
getting cards today. They had to rent a warehouse, millions of cards. See, don't send physical materials. That's a bad idea. Here's another bad idea. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, I know you guys are I know, Steve, at least you're a fan of the iPad 2, as am I.
Yep.
But a Maine school has just bought iPad 2s for every one of its kindergartners. 582 iPad 2s. What do you think of that?
And what they said was that just the use of the modest level of educational software, which is available on the iPad, has made a measurable improvement in the kids' reading skills.
Well,
Oh,
that's-
really? How long have they had these things? 2 minutes, and it's already
A
showed
year.
some.
This
is
is
bull
This is
crap.
from the guy, John C. Dvorak, who said he was really glad that his kids played driving games because they were better drivers because of it. And now you're saying kids can't learn to read?
Well, they can't learn to read from a book? The driving simulator is that's a red herring, Leo. It's got nothing to do with this. This is not a simulator where they're simulating reading and then they get good at it. That doesn't make any sense.
Teachers saw remarkable progress using iPads. The district, 285 iPads.
This is a promotional stunt. This is a public relations stunt that Apple somehow orchestrated.
It's a $200,000 buy because they also bought insurance, educational software, training. All the teachers get them. 6 elementary schools. This is a tiny town in Maine. The population of the town, 25,000, but they all have iPads.
You know, Jerry's wife has a lot of experience with using computers to teach, what is it, reading, Jerry?
Oh, yeah, reading. She has a systematic phonics program. It was written for DOS. It works on Windows, and it's kind of hokey looking, but it works.
So it does. It could work.
Well, her program is systematic. I don't know what programs there are for the iPad. What she teaches is systematic phonics, and it works, as far as we know, every time, as long as you're dealing with normal people. Obviously, there are, I don't know what's the proper word you can use for, let us say, intellectually challenged.
They're a card short of a full deck. I know what you're talking about.
My mother used to be a first grade teacher, and I once asked her, did any kid, in rural Florida, so this is not what you call an expensive, rich neighborhood. And I asked her, did any kids ever leave first grade who couldn't read in your classes? And she said, yeah, there'd be every year or so, there'd be 1 or 2 who didn't learn to read, but they didn't learn anything else either.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with the normal population, there is no reason why 70 intensive lessons won't teach phonic reading of English. And that's reading. If you're reading vocabulary and you're speaking vocabulary, they're the same. That's all on my website. My wife will sell you the program, and, 70 lessons and your kid can read.
JerryPournelle.com.
Jerry, put it on the iPad and make some money.
Yeah, really.
I want to. Roberta doesn't, and that's her program, not mine. She invented it, she makes it happen, and she doesn't want to do it. I don't know why. I would love to have her put it on the iPad. I think it's a natural for the iPad. The iPad is more than powerful enough to do it, and it would be an iPad app. And I'll bet you if she put that thing up there at $10, she'd sell 1 million of them.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
Well, one of the things I think that happens with the notion of touch is that it really draws kids to it. I mean, we've seen all the stories about parents handing their iPhones to even their babies.
Oh yeah,
as the high-tech pacifier. Yeah. And I just think I look at the technology we have, the power we have in these devices, the connectivity we have with the internet, and although it would be hugely an upfront, huge investment, there is an incredible teaching machine and an incredible opportunity for delivering knowledge and in the form of education on tablets.
Particularly on something like an iPad. I think the most effective advertisement that Apple ever had was the early iPad ads that came up and said, you already know how to use it. Mm. And it turns out they were right. People would get hold of them, and by you, they meant kids down to age 6. You already know how to use it.
What about this this French law? Google and Facebook are challenging it. Steve seems to have an opinion on this. The French government obliged. This was a regulation passed some time ago. Says that e-commerce sites, video and music services, even web email providers must have a data retention. I don't know what the length of time is, but that for some time of their customers' personal information, including names, mailing addresses, not email, but physical mailing addresses, telephone numbers, and get this, passwords.
Yeah. Okay, so for the listeners who aren't regular listeners to Security Now, I should explain that the state-of-the-art technology for handling logins is that companies do not store your password. Instead, they store a hash of your password. The idea is that you can take a password, you run it through a so-called cryptographic hash, and you get this blob, a fixed size, sort of a token that represents the password. The beauty of doing that is if you should ever lose control of your database, and it happens literally
a lot these days,
daily, then you're not divulging your users' passwords. You're divulging this thing, and the beauty of a cryptographic hash is that there's no way that, knowing even what the output of the hash is, there's no way of reversing the process and, for example, getting data that would then allow you to impersonate the person and log in as them. But if you take what this French law is apparently saying literally, that is that they could demand that companies like Google and Facebook and so forth are upon demand able to turn over the passwords, then what that says is those companies have to save something that, for the security and the privacy of their own users, they're deliberately not saving. That is, they're not saving the password, they're saving the hash. And so this has caused a great deal of tweeting in my direction.
Yeah, well, and Google and Facebook are fighting this. A lot of companies are fighting it. eBay doesn't want to do this. And I think, let me tell you, it's also a little scary, the notion that you could subpoena not just my personal information, but my password, which gives you access to my continued information until I know about it and change it.
Until you know about it and erase it or whatever.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Yeah, you do understand that anything you put in the cloud is probably going to be available to somebody you didn't want to have it.
What?
You know, that's really not the case in the
At
case
least with
of
these hash passwords, it's not.
Well, or stuff that you encrypt before it leaves your computer.
Right.
If you do it right, if you really encrypt stuff before it leaves, then it's just pseudo-random noise. So,
and the pseudo-random noise will
How many
be
people are going to do that, Steve? How many people? Come on.
I agree.
How many people?
I agree. Because people want little convenience features like, oh, I can access this from a web browser anywhere else. Well, if that's a capability that you want.
Anything you put up in the cloud is going to be available to somebody you didn't want to have it. Now, in the case of if it's encrypted, you didn't want them to have it is not a very powerful emotion. But if it's your story of your last affair with somebody not your partner, you probably did not want somebody to know that. Anything you put up in the cloud is eventually going to be available to somebody you did not want to have it.
Nevertheless, I think this is a bad idea. And I hope that they overturn the law.
I wonder what it is that they're trying to get at. That is, do they actually want the ability to impersonate users, or do they just want the ability to have access to their accounts? Because that could be done without the divulging of this information, or without actually needing the providers to store the passwords.
You want my opinion? I think the Chinese government is bribing the holy hell out of some people to get that law.
In France.
Yeah. Once the French do it, the rest of the European, you watch. I think it's probably something having to do with the Chinese. That's what they want, is everybody's password, you know.
I knew it was going to come back to the Hong Kong post office,
It's
Leo.
all about the Chinese. Jerry Pournelle is at jerrypournelle.com, and you must go there. You can subscribe to his Chaos Manor columns there. You can find out about what he's up to, and I can't wait to see the new bite. I hope that they bring Chaos Manor back, Jerry. That'll be awesome. We're so glad you joined us today. Thank you for being here. Steve Gibson is the host, the man in charge at grc.com, and the host of the Security Now show, which we do every Wednesday, and you've got to tune in 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Pacific at Eastern at live.twit.tv for Security Now.
John and Jerry, it was a pleasure being on with you guys today.
Education.
Always a pleasure to see you, Steve.
The most sincere John C. Dvorak is at channeldvorak.com, and he has a new show called x3x3.mevio.com. What else you doing? Anything else besides No Agenda?
The No Agenda show, of course, is taking up most of my time.
Really?
PC Mag, obviously, Market Watch, I'm always there. And now I'm going to actually, when we finish the show, which seems to be wrapping up a little prematurely.
I have a plane to catch.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Vegas.
Oh, baby, Vegas, baby.
It's not to gamble. It's for the National Association of Broadcasters.
Well, while you're on your way to Vegas, I'm going to go into the archives and start pulling stuff out. You know, the funny thing is I already kind of have one book ready to go called 1984, which is all the stuff I wrote about in 1984.
I love that.
When I was writing like a column a day, so there's a lot of material. It was kind of an interesting year. Just when the Macintosh showed up. So I'll maybe go do that this afternoon.
That was a watershed year, wasn't it, in computing?
I think it was a big year.
Yeah.
And I think it was just before the PC, right?
Yeah,
No,
the PC was 81.
No,
that was 81.
Oh,
but
okay.
the PC
it was just before the AT.
Yeah, the PC was
Right.
really starting to get steam in the early 80s. Macintosh comes out. I think it's a very exciting time, absolutely. I agree. I look forward to that. We are going to NAB. We are the official streaming partner for the National Association of Broadcasters. If that's not a hoot, I don't know what is.
Very cool.
I'm surprised they fell for that one, Leo.
I tricked him. So we will be broadcasting from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time every day, Monday through Thursday this week. We've got some great panelists going to learn a lot. Home Theater Geeks will be on there, Windows Weekly too, because the Mix conference is going on. Microsoft's web conference also in Vegas. Paul Thurrott's going to be out there. It should be a lot of good programming coming up over the next 4 days. And, of course, you can catch those broadcasts if you miss them live on our TWiT specials feed, which is twit.tv/specials. This show is, of course, every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern at live.twit.tv, and you can catch it after the fact on iTunes, everywhere better podcasts are sold. Thanks all for being here. It was so much fun. Next week, our 6th anniversary episode with the original Twits. John, you can come too. You're an honorary original Twit.
Maybe I'll come to Kibitz. I'll be like those two guys in the balcony.
Can I Statler and I can
Waldorf.
Waldorf. I have to tell you, John, just for you, I was at the school auction and somebody was auctioning off 5 1995 Bordeaux's, including several Leovilles.
Ooh.
And I bought them.
95 Leoville's a good wine, so you won't regret that purchase.
He said keep it down for another 5 years to really maximize the pleasure. But if you want to open it early, we can.
I'll be up.
That was easy. I convinced him. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Another Twit in the can.